Hello and welcome to the 68th BFI London Film Festival in partnership with American Express. I'm Jess Painter. I'm one of the BFI Film Academy Young Programmers, and I'm really excited to be opening our LFF Scene series today. So in this series, we are going to be talking to filmmakers whose work is part of the Generation Now season at London Film Festival. All these shorts have been specially selected from the main programme, and they all look at what it means to be a young adult in the world today. So all of these shorts are available for you to watch for free UK-wide for the duration of the festival on the BFI player. So please do check these out. So in this first scene interview of this series, I have the pleasure of talking to Amaya, Owen, Rowlands and Celia Legard about their brilliant film, Fierce Grace. So Amaya is the director of the film and Celia is the producer. They co-wrote the film and have also co-founded their production company, Pretty Loud Productions. On top of all this, they are both also associate producers at Big Talk Studios. I am absolutely delighted to welcome Amaya and Celia. So firstly, massive congratulations on your selection.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It is bizarre. I actually had to get my friend to read the email because I was like, surely not. Surely not.
It's really exciting.
But it's amazing and it's such a privilege and we're very, very excited.
Well, it's incredibly well deserved. And yeah, I'm very excited to be talking to you both today. To just start off, I'd love for you both to give like a little introduction to the film, just in case anyone hasn't had the pleasure of seeing it yet.
Yeah, so it's a micro short, so it's only about 4 minutes, which might make it easier to press play. It's a comedy about a girl asking for a pay rise, and basically she confronts her boss and it spirals out of control.
Yeah.
Fierce Grace kind of looks specifically at the challenges posed by the world of work and corporate culture. As I mentioned, it's part of the hashtag Generation Now season, which focuses on challenges faced by young people. You've also previously described the film as the antidote to girl boss millennial culture. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what influenced the film with that in mind.
It's not about like one particular experience or dynamic. I think there's this sort of growing disillusionment amongst young people in the workplace, particularly those who identify as women, because we sort of live in this like dual identity. So there's the like strong, empowered, defiant person who we want to be. And then there is the real person that comes out in the heat of the moment, which is less strong, less defiant, less empowered. And we were really interested by that idea because there's so much in the culture at the moment and it moves so quickly about this idea of who we need to be to get ahead. And, we're moving at such a bizarre rate. So it's like trad wives, brat, demure, and then we also have the sort of like ugly echoes of Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, even though we're 10 years girl boss.
Yeah, like the kind of antithesis to the girl boss is like those memes you see that are like, take your exclamation marks out your email, speak to people like a man would. It's this kind of thing where I think we were looking at all of this and thinking this is actually just, we should be able to show up how we want to show up.
Yeah.
But it's this, as you said, that like dual identity of in practicing it in the mirror and then coming in and bottling it, which we found quite funny.
Yeah. So it's that in internal battlefield.
It really comes across, and I love the way you talk about the pressure to kind of be a girl boss, yet also now the anti thing of that is almost you're under as much pressure to be doing that as well. So it feels like there's not really a way out, really, which is really well. We also spoke briefly previously about how Bookie Bakray, who plays Grace so brilliantly, brought her own experience as a young Black woman to the film. I'd love to hear a little bit about how working collaboratively with Bookie kind of shaped the final film.
No, I think workshopping the script with Bookie and working in that collaborative way was a key step in our editorial process, since obviously workplace relations are racialized as much as they're inflected by gender. And so she brought a dimension to the film that we just couldn't have achieved otherwise. And I think that you really see that in her performance. Like there's this sense of like a kind of like knowingness. So she sees right through her boss, but there's so much she has to contain and keep below the surface.
Yeah, it's I love the kind of, it feels so personal. I mean, it's such a brilliant performance because obviously you're completely believing everything, and I feel like it takes you immediately to a similar situation or a person as soon as you hear the words she's saying. I'd love to hear a little bit also about how a collaborative process in the editorial and in talking to Bookie, how did that impact the way that you directed?
I think that my approach to direction is like almost entirely collaborative because I come from a theatre background, so I've done like a lot of devising, and that's just something that comes naturally to me. It was interesting because this is the first thing I've ever made. At first I was like slightly worried, and I was like, hey, like what's going on? Like I seem to need to ask a lot of questions, and I want to people to come to me with their ideas. And I was like, is that because I'm inexperienced? Then I realized, no, actually, when you're lucky enough to work with like incredibly talented people, as I got to on the film, the amazing thing is that you get to trust them and give them a brief and let them go off and come back to you and see what they come back with, and then you can tweak together until the cows come home. But it's like amazing, like getting to work with someone like Ronnie, who was our DP, who is a genius, and I honestly gave him one image and he came back with what you'll see in the film as well, it's mesmerizing, you know. So, and then there's like working even with like hair and makeup. So Francesca Devas, who did all the hair and makeup on this, like watching her bring Bookie to life and getting to work on the teeny tiny details of that was like such a pleasure. And yeah,
It's it sounds like a lovely process, kind of all working together and clearly having such a lovely relationship on set and away from it. So yeah, it really comes across in the film that it's kind of a work of joy and collaboration. Something I also really loved about the film that stood out was the way that it balances. As you say, it's a comedy, there's a real comic sensibility, there's lines that have you kind of laughing out loud, yet that sense of exploitation and the sense of a very real challenge is very apparent through the comedy. So as much as you're laughing, you're also thinking, oh my gosh, they're having a really bad time in this office. So I wanted to hear, why do you think that comedy is so effective at talking to issues faced by young people, as in the Generation Now season?
I think it's an amazing way of Trojan horsing arguments that might otherwise be dismissed. Like it's the oldest trick in the book. So, particularly when the world is saturated by doom and gloom, you know, you need laughter to cut through, I think.
There's someone that's, I can't remember who it is, and I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but there's someone who said, if you want to make someone think, make them laugh. And I think that it kind of unlocks people. You can get into somebody's
brain in a different way
if you make them laugh.
Yeah.
It's very true. It kind of makes people vulnerable to some extent. It's almost like an interrogation technique, which is the wrong thing to say. I know it's it's not that, but as soon as you laugh, you're kind of at ease and you're, yeah, as you say, you're open to thinking and to you know, being struck. Whereas if you're expecting, as you say, that doom and gloom, it's harder to engage with something. So another thing that really helps, I feel, that comedy, but also the rage in the film and the very justified frustration, is the way that music and sound is used. There's heavy metal, there's this soundtrack which is like plucking and is almost sounds like something from a suspense or horror film, and it builds into this rhythm which is so satisfying to watch. Was the soundtrack and the music something that you'd always envisioned from when you first started writing the film, or was it something that you kind of came to as production carried on?
I think when you're making a film that only has one character and one voice in it, particularly a comedy, having something for the dialogue to bounce off of is so important, because good comedy is all about pacing and rhythm. So we knew from the get-go that we needed an amazing score and an amazing sound design to like hold the whole thing together in a way. And I was so lucky that I got to work with Inez, and we honestly like sat there doing the sound design step by step. We spent hours looking for the right door knocks, and she was so incredibly generous in that way, because it was like the sound design and the score were the other characters, you know. And the same goes working with Max on the score. It was like, honestly, like we went and we made sure that every pluck worked with the cuts. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel as well when Grace is in the lift and the metals playing as well. It reminds me of how kind of sometimes you listen to music to sort of hype yourself up, and how that thing really gets into that girl boss mentality.
Yeah, no, that's what it was, and I just loved this. I think there's something like so comic about having these binaural beats that bring you into the film, that lull you into this like false sense of security, and then we have the screamo, which is her hyping herself up, and also it's like the chaos, the internal chaos we feel maybe in the workplace, and then the like demure way we present ourselves even when that's going on.
Yeah, the polished exterior.
The polished exterior.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about the last film produced by Pretty Loud Productions, which is The Gospel According to Gail, directed by Florence Winterhill. So this film won Best Film at the 2022 BFI Future Film Festival. So huge congratulations for that as well. I'd love to hear a little bit about how the process of making Fiercest Grace compared with making The Gospel According to Gail, especially as you both took on slightly different roles on the more recent production. Did you find you took a lot from the first film to the second?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, Gail was the first thing we both had ever done. We'd been runners for like 2 months and then just dived straight into making that. So that was a bit of a baptism of fire. I think I learned a lot as a producer. I learned a lot from making Gail, namely what I wasn't good at, which I actually think is a really good thing to learn.
Yeah.
So when approaching Grace, I immediately rang Emily Betts, who is an unbelievable producer. She's very clever, very calm, and has all the skill set that maybe sometimes I can lack. Similarly with Freddie Robarts, who joined us a little later on in the production thing, he came on because we needed his skills, and I think it taught me that hiring people or bringing people onto your project who can do things that you can't do was a really great like lesson, and made the whole process like so joyful and so easy for me. Essentially, I trust both of them immeasurably, and I think they're both very, very talented producers, basically.
Yeah, incredible.
You don't have to say a specific thing, but I was kind of wondering, I was going to ask you a bit later about if there was something specific in production that came up as a challenge, which you thought, okay, this is something that I want to kind of change or look at. Was there something that specifically you thought
what's interesting is the approach when writing Grace did come a lot from how, so when we made Gail, that had a car, an animal, children, exterior locations. Basically, it was a really intense production, especially as for a low budget film. So when we were thinking about Grace, that we did think about one person, one room, one day shoot. Like, and so in terms of between the script and the production, there was nothing really that we had to think, oh, we can't do that. No, or we've got to cut that, because it was already kind of producible. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
When you hire a low loader on the first film you've ever made, everything else feels easy. I would actually say.
I have to ask, from a position of ignorance, what is a low loader?
Oh my God. So a low loader is what you rig a car on. It's like a huge truck with like a bit that sticks out on the end, and you put the car on the end, and that's where you rig the car, and then they rig all of the cameras around it. And then the camera team and the director is sat like in this cubby on the vehicle as well.
And I'm on a walkie-talkie going in the front of the lorry going, okay, next take, and like the insurance is crazy, you have to let the police know, like there's nowhere to park it,
you have to have like
it's expensive. The guy that we could only afford to have it for 3 hours, and we were trying to get half the film shot on the low loader. So essentially it was, I think I cried behind a tree because I didn't want the crew to see me crying.
Yeah.
Gosh, it must have been so surreal, as you say, kind of having been runners for 2 months, and then suddenly you're, with the walkie-talkies, what an amazing experience as well, It's
the kind of thing that if you knew how intense it was, you'd never do it. But because we had no idea, we honestly had no idea. Yeah. We just did it. Well, I wouldn't do it again.
Going into it with some sort of healthy ignorance. I guess that's lovely though, because it meant that you have two very different films when it comes to Gail and Grace. I mean, they're both very funny. Gail has kind of this, it's very character driven. As you mentioned, there's the animal, there's the children, there's loads of kind of hilarious things that happen. Whereas Grace, is far more, it's more concentrated in one location. The comedy's arguably a little bit darker. Did you, when you were writing, did your kind of comic approach shift? Did you do this on purpose, I suppose, or did it just come to something different because of maybe that more concentrated setting and the one person in one room?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a kind of, I don't think it was a conscious decision to have them as different tone.
No.
I think Gail is obviously quite character led. I mean, obviously, and Grace is too in its own way, but Grace, I think, is more of a reflection of an experience.
Yeah.
And like naturally lends to a darker humour because it's satire.
Totally.
Whereas Gail is a bit more in this realm of well, I can't
the Silly Billy Awards.
Yeah, it's a bit silly.
You know, she's like, Gail is pure entertainment. It's like a celebration of the mundane. It's like, it's a love letter to all the jobs worths we've ever encountered.
Yeah.
You know, whereas like Grace is slightly more disturbing. I'm joking. It's literally a comedy.
But I mean, yeah, I would love a driving lesson from Gail. It's such a fun film. But both talk to the experience of being a young adult in very different ways. I'd love to now ask a little bit about your work at Big Talk Studios. You're both associate producers, very different. I'd love to know a little bit about kind of the difference between producing and making work at Big Talk versus through your own production company. Is there a huge difference between those two things? You kind of take things from one to the other?
I mean, I don't mean this I mean this in the most serious way. Everything we make as Pretty Loud has been influenced by the work we do at Big Talk, but also the people we work with at Big Talk.
Yeah.
I think, are so lucky to work with such talented and also generous people.
Yeah.
Every single time we have a script, there's people to read it, give us notes on it. Like our colleagues / friends watch our cuts and things.
Yeah, we have access to like some of the best brains in the business, and that goes the same for all of the amazing production people we work with as well.
I was going to say, anytime that we run into anything in production, I can go speak to the production team here, and they're so generous and helpful.
Yeah, unbelievably kind.
Yeah, so, and also I feel like even working here, it's obviously a comedy company in its way, and I think a lot of our work is reflective of the work that's made here as well.
Totally. There's no way we could have done any of the stuff we've done had we never been at Big Talk. Like, it's afforded us so many incredible opportunities, and that's something we are forever grateful for.
What is interesting is we work as development producers, so we're working a lot with other people's scripts and other people's writing. Whereas when we do our Pretty Loud stuff, it's mostly our own stuff. We're not really producers for hire in that way as a production company. So that's a really interesting. We learn so much from working with incredible writers and reading really great scripts and basically learning what works, what doesn't work, why that's funny, why that's not funny. And that informs our writing as well. Yeah,
we get to be on the other side of it here, if that makes sense. So like on one side we're like creatives and writers in our own right, and then on the other side we're like in the big studio system, which is unbelievable. Like this, we get to see things on such an enormous scale that we would never ever be able to see otherwise or have access to.
It must also give you a real sense of, I think empathy is maybe the wrong word, but having kind of produced your own scripts and gone through that process of producing with Pretty Loud, when you're dealing with people who are bringing in their scripts, you're working on other people's projects, as it were, having that really intimate experience of what it is to have written something, what it is to make something that's really close to you, must also really, contribute to how you are producing at Big Talk as well.
Totally. You understand like how important it is and like sensitivities of the whole process as well,
Amazing. So kind of on that, I would love to hear about some advice, if you have any, both for aspiring filmmakers, but also people who are maybe looking to work in screen industries or are looking to one day maybe be an associate producer and kind of take that role on as well.
Well, I think my main thing is for like younger filmmakers is that like budget is going to be your biggest thing to overcome. And so when I was thinking about this and thinking about what advice I would give for somebody who's maybe trying to make a short film, doesn't know where to start, maybe has a great script or a great director or something like that, but doesn't quite know how to get up to that next level. And essentially, I think what I've learned making Gale and Grace is that there are always ways that you can get around these budgeting issues. You know, lots of camera houses, if you film on a Sunday or a Saturday, might, if you know, pitch yourself well enough, might let you borrow some kit. You might have a DP that's working on your short that has really good connections with camera houses because he uses them all the time, or she uses them all the time, in which case, like, basically always try and shoot low, always try and ask for the most, you know, free location, whatever you can, and then hopefully someone will meet you in the middle. But also try and be in the mix, like go to these film festivals, like attend them, talk to other filmmakers, ask the question, where did you find your money? Where are you getting your funding from? Then when they say this person, go and have a coffee with that person. Why did you give them that much money? What are you looking for? Like, just really try and, I mean, it's quite scary, like networking's horrible, but everybody feels scared.
And I think it's like, even when you're at the first moment of deciding that this is something that you want to pursue, everyone else has done it before you, so people are incredibly generous. So even if it's like looking at some credits on a show that you really like, looking for those people on Instagram, sending some of those people a DM, you know, maybe not like Ridley Scott, he's probably busy, but what I mean is, like, you can approach people and they will always do what they can to help you. And that's one thing I really love about the film and TV community, is that people are always looking to mentor other people on their way up, and will be really, really generous with their time. And if they can't help, 90% of the time they'll put you on to someone who can help. And I think that's a really great way of speaking to people, finding out their experience, and then from that you can kind of gauge your own path. Or they might know someone who knows someone who's working on a job, or utilize that access that we have to people now, because it hasn't always been like that.
That's really encouraging to hear, and I'm sure lots of people watching this will be really encouraged by that. And yeah, it's a real contrast to the kind of workplace that we see in Fiercest Grace. It's lovely to hear that, you know, there's a bit of positivity and actually people are, you know, often willing to help. So it's really good advice. I would love to ask now, what is next for Pretty Loud Productions? I've just realised as well, is the G name, the female G name, is that a conscious choice that Grace and Gail both start with a G?
That was a coincidence.
I feel like we have to stick with it now.
I know. What are we going to do next?
Brenda, I don't know.
Like Kris Jenner.
Yeah, literally. Kim, Courtney, Kylie, Chloe, Kendall.
What's next for Pretty Loud?
It's a really good question. So I think there are two more shorts we kind of have in the mix. The first one is called Peanuts, which is a Welsh language film, because I'm Welsh. And it's a bilingual film. It's a road trip film. It's very sweet. And yeah, that's like ready to, we're looking for finance basically on that one.
And then we've got another short, which is about, it's a comedy, dark comedy. Maybe it is dark, but it's about this couple who move into an eco commune. And it's, again, kind of looking at that. It's basically they're hiding the fact that they're not eco-friendly. So it's kind of playing with that a bit. But yeah, we've got some really exciting projects in the mix. And yeah, hopefully, if we can find money, some more will be coming.
Well, they both sound brilliant, and I look forward to hopefully seeing them soon. Well, I think that's all we've got time for. So thank you so much for coming on and speaking to me today. I really appreciate also you both being here. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you everyone who's been watching this today. So please go and watch Fiercest Grace on the BFI player. It is there until the 20th of October. You can also find The Gospel According to Gail on Vimeo. So watch that as well because it's great. Also watch our next scene interview in this series. It's released today at 5 p.m. It's going to be Oshan Andrew talking to Sarah Block about her film Trouble. Also, please keep an eye out for young programmer run events at London Film Festival. They're part of the LFF for Free programme and they're covering a great range of topics from Celtic cinema to feminine body horror. So check those out. Also on the 20th of October is the incredibly exciting BFI Film Academy Day sponsored by Netflix. So this is an exciting day of events aimed specifically at young screen creatives. There's going to be sessions on filmmaking and opportunities for networking with industry professionals. So if that's something you'd be interested in, please come along. Again, thank you so much for watching and I really hope to see some of you at LFF.